Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna children, thank you very much for joining today. It's coming up to Diwali time, so I'm sure it'll be busy festivities for everybody. Today we wanted to look at the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Very, very important, very, very nice chapter. Beautiful chapter, in fact. So it's all about Bhakti. And Bhakti so far in Bhagavad Gita has been described quite a few times. This is just an example in chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. These are the verses that come. So Bhakti is quite important, very integral part of Bhagavad Gita. So we have to understand what is this Bhakti. And in this chapter, Krishna gives a lot more description of what Bhakti is. And I'm so happy that Sanjana is with us today because she's got such a wonderful understanding of Bhagavad Gita. So thank you so much, Sanjana. So I just do a very quick summary of this chapter. It's one of the shortest chapters, by the way, only 20 verses. There's only one other chapter, chapter 15, which has 20 verses. But in chapter 15, the verses are a little long, some of them. Whereas in this chapter, the verses are, a standard size. So Krishna spoke this chapter really for such amazing wisdom in this chapter. And it is actually quite a short chapter, but he gives the essence very quickly. It's called Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. So he discusses this path of devotion and the stages that one may undergo to achieve it. He also describes the qualities of the devotees who have perfected this bhakti. So this is a really, really nice chapter. We gain insight into the more relished aspects of God's personality, and also what the devotee is like, who is in love with him. There are three themes in this chapter. First one is Arjuna asks him a question. Is it better to worship your personal form, the two-handed form with the flute, three bending, or is it better to worship your impersonal form, the light emanating from God? And Krishna answers him very, very clearly, always worship my personal form. And the second part is really amazing. Krishna gives so many different options how to come closer to him. If you can't do this, do this. If you can't do this, do this. And be very careful and attentive when we come to this, because Krishna gives these wonderful options. If you can't do something, try something else. And then finally, he discusses the wonderful qualities of the devotee, which endear him, which really make him very happy. So, okay, over to you, Sanjana.
Hare Krishna, everyone. It's really good to be back. Sorry, I've been out for a few weeks. It's just been a bit crazy, but I'm really glad to be back, particularly for this chapter, because I think, as I've often said, it's one of my favorites. So it's such a sweet, sweet chapter. So I'm so glad that you all are able to read some of the verses today and learn a bit more about it. So without further ado, we'll kind of go on to reading. We've got lots of hands up for volunteers already. So we'll start with Srinitya. Are you? Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, she's just here. Sorry, she just.
She can start whenever she wants, huh?
Text 1. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be more perfect, those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifested? Text 2. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping with great and transcendental are considered by me to be most perfect. Text 3-4. But those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone. Such persons, engaged in the welfare of all, at last achieve me. Text 5. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested, impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied. Text 6-7. But those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in their devotional service and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Partha, for them I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death.
Very good. So,
Here,
So let's just look briefly at a summary of verses 1-7. So we get a question from Arjuna here. And again, we're kind of thinking about this topic of impersonalism, which we saw in the previous chapter, in a few other chapters as well, thinking about the kind of different forms of God and how we worship God and whether we should be worshiping God in an impersonal way or a personal way. It seems to be quite a recurring theme of conversation, and I think something that actually comes up quite a lot when people are discussing, how do I worship God, how do I see God? Well, Krishna says to us that the essence of our being is to be happy, or in the state of Anandamaya Vyasat. And the essence of such happiness is experienced in loving relationships. You can't it's very difficult to have emotions when you're just kind of existing in a vacuum by yourself with something that's very impersonal. In essence, you can kind of cultivate emotions through relationships rather than just being on your own. You can't really get this happiness emotion if you're not interacting with someone. So for a relationship to exist, there has to be a subject, there has to be an object, and there has to be an exchange between those two things, or reciprocity. But if we have just this one impersonal being, there's none of those things, because it's just this kind of oneness, and we're kind of merging into this oneness we think we need to do, and just worshipping this one being. There's no exchange there. It's just all kind of one-way street. So we don't really feel that emotion of happiness that gets cultivated in a two-way relationship. So this is why Krishna explains to us that a personal approach to God through Bhakti Yoga is actually more practical and also more fulfilling. So we feel like, we're not just kind of worshipping. There's nothing, no emotion, no spark, no kind of essence that the soul can receive. But rather that through doing our bhakti, yes, we are serving Krishna, but in a sense we get a reciprocation of that love and service as well. While those who might go along the impersonal path of spirituality, of course, we've talked about this before, there's no such thing as kind of negative spiritual merit. If you're going down a spiritual path, you will accrue spiritual credit. So it is important to stress that there, but it just makes progress a little bit more difficult, because if you can't visualize someone, if you're not interacting with someone, I think it's much easier for you to break away from that engagement. And so it becomes harder, because if you're focusing on something impersonal, the mind is already wandering on so many different things that when it's impersonal, it's even harder to focus, because there's no form or body or something that you're engaging with. Whereas with the personal form, you're constantly engaging with Krishna. And therefore, it's much harder once you kind of become well practiced within that to be distracted. So the main lesson that we can take away from all of these bullet points here is that worshipping the impersonal form, it does make our lives very, very difficult. And why would we want to do that when kind of spiritual paths can be very difficult to turn to anyway, when we have such a big illusion of Maya? Why would we want to make things even harder for ourselves? So I think here we can really learn to kind of just make things a little bit easier for ourselves. And Krishna has provided a clear method for us to do that as well, which we will learn more about in this chapter.
Brilliantly explained, Sanjana. Oh, hang on, what's this? Sorry. Okay, oops.
Okay, let's go and see who's got their hands up for reading. Nimai, do you want to read?
Yes, Mataji. Text 8. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and engage all your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. Text 9. My dear Arjuna, O winner of wealth, if you cannot fix your mind upon me without deviation, then follow the regulative principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me. Text 10. If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect stage. Text 11. If, however, you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all results of your work and try to be self-situated. Text 12. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of fruits of action. For by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nimai. I think that was really well read. And this is a really important section of the Bhagavad Gita, because we get Krishna telling us that I'm not expecting you to be perfect straight away. I'm not expecting for things to happen like this. And the way that I often see this is that just like any other relationship that you have with your mothers or fathers or with your friends or anything else, you build a relationship in stages. And so Krishna actually provides us these stages through which we can become so, intimate with Krishna and kind of rejoin him and be ready to have that relationship, that purest relationship with him in the spiritual world. So he says to us, right at the beginning, you're suddenly coming to the stage, you think there must be something more than this material world. You're feeling, your soul is feeling dissatisfied with the tumults that you're going through in this material world. And you're generally feeling quite like, I don't know how to kind of get rid of this feeling that I'm not fully fulfilled in this material world. And this is when you might start turning to works like the Bhagavad Gita, coming to listen to these classes and thinking, let me cultivate some knowledge about my place in the world. Who am I? Where am I placed? What happens beyond my death in this material world? So you're coming to the Bhagavad Gita, you're learning about this, and it's also teaching you a little bit about how the material world is trapping us and how we might go about renouncing some of those trappings as well. And also how we might start this stage of meditation, of instead of meditating on material things like phones, cars, things like that, actually dovetailing that meditation and practice towards Krishna. So we work for Krishna, we eat for Krishna, we all the day-to-day things that we do, we're doing for Krishna rather than doing for our self-gratification. So these are kind of the first steps that we do. Now, I think I've kind of jumped the gun a little bit because the second stage talks directly about working for Krishna. But this is kind of the second stage is really coming into all of your work is for Krishna. So it's not that, when you're in the beginning, you might say, okay, I'll put aside a little bit of my pocket money and offer it to Krishna for the chores that I did. Or maybe I'll offer up like one of my A stars for Krishna. This one is kind of a very full, you embody that in all of your practice in your life. So all the fruits of your work is for Krishna, and everything in which you're doing, kind of giving charity, service, etc., you're always dovetailing that back to Krishna. Now, the third stage is more about enacting these regulative principles of sadhana bhakti into your life. So things like, renouncing onion and garlic, like following the particular dietary requirements required of you, chanting your 16 rounds, those types of regulative principles, which will just enable you to take your spiritual practice even further and make sure that it's even more kind of directed towards Krishna and directed towards preparing you for your time in the spiritual world and preparing you for proper service in the spiritual world. It again kind of brings you up that extra level. And by the time then you're doing all of this, you naturally fall into this rhythm. The more and more you're following these regulative principles, the more and more you're working for Krishna and meditating on Krishna and gathering more and more knowledge about Krishna. So all of these three stages working together, suddenly, you find that your mind is constantly fixed on Krishna, and actually to the point where you think, I cannot be operating without Krishna in my life at all. You cannot have a moment where you're operating without Krishna in your life. And this is when you've got to the kind of direct topmost stage of devotion towards Krishna, and you're far more prepared to kind of, at the time of death, think of Krishna and pass away and come back to him in the spiritual world.
Brilliant, actually. I like the way you took it from the bottom up. That's a nice explanation. Thank you. And you can continue with this. This is now the summary. So
yeah. So yeah, I think Krishna he demonstrates his understanding and greatness by showing first the topmost practice of Bhakti Yoga, but I think as well the fact that he can offer us various different options, recognize that some of us might find it difficult to immediately embrace a devotional path is also something that we can meditate on, because it's such a reminder of Krishna's mercy. And the progressive steps towards devotional spirit, including the practice of regulated spirituality, worship towards our daily work, and the cultivation of knowledge, are all really helpful to us. And like I said, they all kind of preparatory stages, so that when we do go to the spiritual world, we're ready. Krishna is ready to receive us, and we're also ready to return to his service in the spiritual world. I think the nicest thing about this as well is that it's not an all or nothing journey. Anyone can begin their journey, and I think this builds on some of the things that we see in the earlier chapters, that when Krishna reassures that anyone who does any spiritual activity, that's never lost. It's always banked up as credit. So, don't think that anything is lost by even starting the smallest things, like offering your food up for prasad, or just, maybe doing 1 round a day. Those little things are never lost. And they will help you build up to the kind of higher, topmost practice of Bhakti Yoga as well. And it highlights Krishna's patience for us. Very, very patient for us.
Very good. Yes, very nice point. He's so patient. And boy, we test his patience.
Vijay, do you want to read?
Please. Text 9-14. One who is not envious but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Text 15. He by whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. Text 16. A devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. one who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such are devotees very dear to me.
If you want, you can just read these last 2 verses as well, Abhijay.
Okay. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, is such a person is very dear to me. Text 20. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me.
Very good. So that's 11th is the 12th chapter, of course, Bhakti Yoga. Okay.
So just looking at that final section, then we learn this is a really, really important section for us because again, Krishna outlines some of the saintly qualities of a pure devotee, of someone who's practicing bhakti at that highest level on that ladder that he's just given us. And for us, by kind of learning and meditating on these different qualities, we can also kind of attempt to cultivate them as well and therefore please Krishna. So let's look at these different qualities then. Is there a slide which got all of them on one big slide, Nabi Prabhu?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Thank you.
I was like, I know some of them, but I think it would be something to put them all. So the following qualities we see that make one very dear to Krishna. And to be honest, they're all ones that I think we would expect. So non-enviousness, kindness, freedom from being false ego, so being arrogant and thinking that we own the world and we can do everything. Equality and happiness and distress, so we are, as much as we can be, kind of focusing on not being affected by the different states of happiness and distress which will kind of come through in our lives, and realize that this is just a product of the material world where everything is changing. We're self-satisfied, satisfied with what we have, satisfied with our ability to serve Krishna in the best of our capacity. We place no one in difficulty, try not to inconvenience other people. Here we be free from anxiety. So of course, again, in the material world, anxiety is a very natural feeling for us because it's a very difficult place to be. But it's something that we can cultivate, is reminding ourselves that Krishna is always there for us. He's always putting us in the best position. And that again, it's a product of this changeable material world. But the more that we work on our spirituality, the closer we're getting to being liberated from this material world, can kind of help us with some feelings of anxiety if we have those. Independence from the ordinary course of activity, so we're kind of independent from just sleeping, eating, mating and defending. We kind of see our higher purpose and higher service towards Krishna. We try and act with purity, not eating too much meat, not and taking care of our body properly and things like that. We have expertise, so I think this and number 17 is really important, thinking about knowledge and how important knowledge is to us. Back to that ladder, I think one of the first steps is the cultivation of knowledge, but it's not necessarily that you get to step 2 or 3 and you stop looking for that knowledge. You'll see if you many devotees have spent lots of time reading about Krishna, reading Krishna book, reading the Srimad Bhagavatam, reading the Bhagavad Gita, so that we can enhance our understanding of Krishna and also understand our own spiritual practice, learn more about how we can practice properly. Freedom from lamentation, not getting too caught up in pleasure or grief. So again, kind of regulating our emotions a little bit more so that we can kind of focus more on our spiritual practice and realize that these are kind of products of the material displeasure. We should treat both our friends and our enemies equally. At the end of the day, everyone is interacting with us on a kind of karmic plane, so that might be part of it. There's also the fact that everyone is a soul and everyone is equal in the eyes of Krishna. So who are we, again, with false ego, to determine whether we like or we dislike someone, or whether we're going to punish someone. You know, it's not our responsibility. So we should treat everyone with equal eyes. We should be equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat or cold. So whenever things are very passionate, or if the things are just very cold, very difficult, we should be equal in both of these situations. We should be equal whether we're in a situation of honor or whether we've been dishonored. Freedom from contamination goes quite well with purity. Silence here doesn't mean just you completely be silent. It's more about being selective in terms of what you talk about and what you engage with. So instead of gossiping, maybe you want to be thinking about how you can use your voice to spread awareness of Krishna and of devotional service, and to make the world generally a much better and more peaceful place. You shouldn't be kind of using your voice to do it in, you know, make more negative aspects of the world. And finally, I think we've got satisfaction again. So
Oh yeah, that's right. Twice. Okay, that's an error. Okay, good.
Okay, so we can categorize a lot of these qualities into 4 different parts. First is the attitude towards ourselves. So do we see ourselves, are we satisfied within ourselves? Do we care about kind of where we are, what we're doing to advance ourselves, to think about ourselves beyond the material world? Are we also understanding the importance of taking care of our body in order to make sure that we can practice spirituality in the best way? All of these things are very important. The second is our dealing with others. So are we treating others with the respect that they deserve? Are we helping them feel at peace? Are we helping them go towards Krishna, and helping them towards escaping the material? How do we react when challenging situations arise? Well, we all know that challenging situations are just a part of who we are, of where we live in this material world. But we can kind of try and control how we react to that and how we go forward from that as well. And many of the qualities in terms of being equal in times of distress and happiness, etc., ask us to think about how we react when we deal with challenging situations. And the fourth is about our dealings with Krishna himself, and whether, you know, we are kind of engaging with him, building on that relationship that we've learnt about in some of the previous verses, focusing enough time on him and remembering that ultimately, you know, our goal is Krishna, not our goal is anything else material that influences us when we're here on the material plane. And devotees endowed with all of these such very attractive character traits, they very much conquer the heart of Krishna because he's so delighted by their thoughtless devotion. And these are the dealings in the transcendental realm that go beyond the material world. And so even Krishna becomes so captive by this love. And not only, and I think it's, you know, Krishna becomes so attracted by these qualities, and if Krishna is becoming attracted by these qualities, imagine how much, you know, goodness you're emanating. Even in this difficult material world, you're providing some people a better way to live, and making it a little bit easier both for yourself and for those around you as well before you can go back. So it can be so helpful, not just for yourself but for everyone else around you as well, because you're just a more attractive person to be around. In lesson 51, we can see that in 4 out of these 8 verses, Krishna mentions the devotee who is dear to him is equal in both happiness and distress. And when this world is, you know, a place that's mainly of distress, this thought process of being equal in both happiness and distress in the devotee is very useful to us. It's, again, it makes being in this material world easier for us, but also easier for others because they can follow our example.
Very, very good. Very good explanations. Thank you so much. So, wow, we're in good time today, so we can take questions. And Pari, very, very kind. This morning, I realized I hadn't asked anybody to do the quiz. So this morning I asked her, and she's so amazing person. She said, yes, I can do it. So thank you very, very much, Pari.
No
So we-
problem, Babaji.
yeah, that's I like your attitude. Yeah, it's fantastic attitude. So let's have questions and then we'll go.
Babaji?
Yes. Yes, Vianchi.
Can I have next week's
Yes.
Kahoot?
You can do next week. Okay. Good question. Good and quick answer. Okay, Mira.
I forgot to put my hand down.
Okay. Anybody got a question? Put your hand up. If you don't have a question, put your hand down. Arjun. Oh, Srinitya.
My first question was if you would be watching a cartoon on television which was about Krishna, would that be wasting time?
Very, very good question. I think obviously it depends on like how the cartoon is made, with what intention the cartoon is made. But if it's one kind of telling the pastimes of Krishna, then I think actually it's very useful for you because you're kind of focusing and thinking about the pastimes of Krishna, focusing on Krishna himself and reminding yourself of his greatness in a way. So if you're using that, because especially maybe for some of the younger ones amongst us, reading like Srimad Bhagavatam, reading Bhagavad Gita, reading kind of Krishna book, even though Krishna book's a little bit like I think easier to read, it's less dense. For some of our younger audience here, I think it might be difficult maybe to always read. So if you have these kind of cartoons or visuals where you can watch Krishna's pastimes, then I think that's a very good use of your time.
Well, do you have to have all of Krishna's pastimes, or maybe some of them would do the job?
I mean, I think it's less about kind of doing the job like a tick box exercise. I mean, if you're able to learn about and hear about all of Krishna's pastimes, then that's obviously brilliant. The main function of them is not to kind of like a checkbox exercise, but to help you understand Krishna's beauty a bit more. And actually, this is really good to pick up in terms of the chapter's theme about focusing on personalism, because
My question is, do you have to recite the Hare Krishna mantra 108 times a day?
I mean, even with the regulative principles, you have to do it even more than 108 times a day.
How about 208? 1,000 times a day?
To be honest, Srinithya, when you're at this early stage, just try and do as much as you can. Even if, let's say, one day you wake up and you think, I can't even do like maybe, even half a round today. But if you think of Krishna, just think, you wake up in the morning, say Hare Krishna. Before you go to sleep at night, say Hare Krishna. Even then, even that 1 or 2 Hare Krishnas that you've done is very powerful. Now, but that's not to say you just do 2.
Well, if you didn't do Hare Krishna mantra all your life and just said Hare Krishna mantra after you woke up and before you were going to bed, would you go to Krishna or not?
That's a very good question. I think it just depends. Obviously, it depends on the individual soul a lot of the time. But if you remember when we were looking at the time of death, like the way that you go to Krishna is that whatever you're thinking of at the time of death, genuinely what your consciousness is, that's where you go. So if you are in genuine God consciousness, you really, really want to go to Krishna, you will go to the spiritual world.
What if you just think of Krishna and you don't have the extreme deep desire to go to the spiritual world? Will you still go to the spiritual world?
If you don't have the extreme deep desire to go to the spiritual world, you won't go to the spiritual world, because if your extreme deep desire is not to the spiritual world, it's for somewhere else. You always, I think everyone has an extreme deep desire, and that
And
get it to the spirit, going to the spiritual world. That's the one that you want it to be. You want to
what
change your deep desire to the going to the spiritual world.
sorry, I wanted to ask something else too.
But just wait a minute, Shinitya. Just listen to the answers before you ask your next question, okay? Because your questions are really, really good, and the answers are really, really good. So it's important to listen properly to the answers so that you are convinced by the answer. And then you can ask the next question, okay? But let me just give you an example of what is how we can chant, right? As Sanjana mentioned, you're little, so you don't have to rise to the high standard straight away. It'll take time, but this is an idea, and this is really a fantastic, pleasurable thing to do. These are my beads, 108 beads on this set. And on every bead, we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. It takes about 10-15 minutes. And sometimes for children, we have 1/4 of this. It's like 27 beads. So you can chant 27 times the Mahamantra, and you do one round, basically. So it's good from a young age to get used to chanting on beads, because it will help you in your future. If you get used to this now, how important chanting is. The holy names of the Lord are so important. And when we chant with Krishna's name, we're with Krishna already. It's not that we will go to the spiritual, we're already with him if we chant nicely. And the desire point, as Sanjana answers so nicely, if we have other desires, then Krishna will fulfill those desires. But ideally, we want to try to live in such a way that we become closer and closer and closer to Krishna, step by step by step by step by step. Okay?
Okay, my next question is, what if your deep desire was to serve Krishna and that was your only wish? Would you go to Krishna at the end of your life?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, Shanithya, that's a really, really good question to have and a good desire to have, because if your only desire is to deeply, deeply, deeply serve Krishna, regardless of where you are, so even before your time of death, when you're in the material world, you will be with Krishna, because you've understood where your place is, you understood what our purpose is as souls of Krishna, is that we are designed to serve Krishna. And so actually, by even doing your service here before the time of death, you will be with Krishna. And even if your desire is not only that, that you want to deeply, deeply serve Krishna, then Krishna might say to you, like he said to Srila Prabhupada, that I need you to go and help other people come to me. I need you to go and spread the kind of philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And actually, there's a good distinction that you've made there, because Srila Prabhupada wasn't with Krishna in the spiritual world, physically at that time. He was here on the material world. But because he had that attitude of, I am serving Krishna, he was always with Krishna, even when he was here.
Nice point. Okay.
My next question.
Oh, just 1 second. Let's let somebody else ask, and then we can come back to you. Okay. So Pari, I just wanted to ask you, Pari, you remember last time you made that list? If you could do that again, if possible, okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Everybody. Thank you. And you have a question, Pari?
Yes, so I wanted to ask, obviously now that I've become sort of connected with Krishna consciousness, I feel like when we have these classes, that's when it comes back, and then sort of sometime after, I'll still be remembering Krishna, but it gets a bit distant. So how do I maintain that connection throughout?
Good.
For me to carry out any bhakti or any service, because I need to have that connection first, I believe.
I think that's a really good point, Pari. And I think, sometimes, like, especially in the early stages of spiritual practice, the connection can feel really difficult because we're essentially weaning ourselves away from our connection with the material world and trying something that's completely different. And for a lot of us, I think completely out of our comfort zone. In fact, when I used to go to classes with Nabi Prabhu, he used to say things that at first it feels like poison almost to try and, wake up really early in the morning and do some chanting and, not eat certain things and this and that. Our brain is going, this seems like a lot of trouble. But more and more that we do it, and maybe this seems a bit like a catch-22 because you don't have that connection yet. The more and more that you do it, it's a kind of like fake it till you make it type thing, where you keep putting in these practices and slowly you feel that connection is getting stronger and stronger. And if you actually make it a day-to-day thing, because it becomes part of your routine, maybe within a year, 2 years or whatever, you actually find that connection you didn't even realize it was forming has started to form. And it is difficult. I think I'm gonna, be honest that there are moments where you might find your faith waver. You might find yourself becoming more distant or taken over by things going on in your life. That is the temptation of the material world. That's also the circumstances of the material world. It's a very, very difficult place for us to live in and then to also try and detach ourselves from. But I think the best way I found to maintain it is to try very hard to make it a proper part of my routine. And that even when I feel that I am distant, I think, okay, well, let me just do it to the best of my ability. And tomorrow is another day, but it's helping me. And that, in the long term, doing it today, even if I feel a bit more distant, is helping me.
Actually, Sanjana, you gave a fantastic insight. Pari, so this is worth listening to on the recording as well, because really, really good. And in fact, just having that desire, just simply having that desire, Krishna will note it and he will fulfill that desire. So just thinking, look, how do I get connected more and more? Just that in itself will inspire Krishna to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to connect you more and more. And that's why I'm 100% sure this morning he put that thought into my head. Hey, nobody's done you haven't asked anybody to do the quiz. Ask Pari. So well done.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Also, a short question, Mataji. I think at the start you said something about like being happy, and it's like a sort of mutual thing with other people. But let's say, like, if you have Krishna, do you really need other people? Can't you just because sometimes like there's like these random waves of sadness that everyone has, and like I ask my mom, like, just people just don't make me happy anymore. Like it's just not worth it. So how? But then again, even if I want Krishna to make me happy, I can't talk to him in person. So how do I maintain that balance?
Yeah, I think these are questions that we all have, particularly when we are your age, Pari, because it's such a difficult time. You're kind of coming into the world, you're defining yourself as an adult. So there's lots of things going on at that time. I think when I gave that example of kind of having happiness being a thing between other people, I think it's because just generally emotions are generated when you interact with other people. So it's not necessarily saying that by being with other people you're automatically going to be happy. I think all of us have lived on this world long enough to know that this isn't necessarily the case. Not everyone we meet will necessarily make us overjoyed. But I think, as you say, there's another difficulty in terms of that with Krishna. Sometimes it feels like we can't, especially at the beginning of our spiritual journey, it's hard to communicate. But actually, you can communicate with Krishna. Your chanting is a form of communication with Krishna. And even though, again, when you start it at first, it might seem like it's a one-way communication, it's noted. And another Prabhu always used to say to us, actually, make sure when you're chanting, you really are chanting, because this is 10 minutes of Krishna's day that he's coming down taking time out of his very, very busy schedule as God to spend time with you. This is your time with Krishna. And the more that you engage with that, or try to engage with that, the more that you might start to feel maybe more senses of reciprocity coming through. At the beginning of my chanting journey, you know, I found it really, really difficult. And after a few months or so, I started to feel that there was a little bit more connection coming again. So I think it's something that really takes time. But I think reminding ourselves in these moments of sadness that they will pass, that they're temporary, because everything in the material world is temporary, and therefore that we can think forward to a time where we won't be feeling those moments of sadness, is also another way to deal with it, on top of kind of restoring that connection with Krishna and kind of trying to work towards a sense of spiritual happiness.
Thank you, Mataji. That really helped. Thank you.
It's also when we connect, yeah, your point is actually very valid. Even I was just going to say that, you know, when we connect with devotees of the Lord, then, you know, that can help, because their interest is just Krishna. But
yeah, I understand, because with devotees, obviously it's different. They're also in that mood of Krishna, so it's easy to interact with them. But you know, people in school, everyone unfortunately, they're not connected to Krishna. Obviously they're lost, but I feel like it does impact me, and still I shouldn't let that impact me. But you know, spending too much time with them is just very annoying.
Yes, that's very true. Actually, associating with non-devotees can actually be very disadvantageous. But we have to live in this world at the same time. So Krishna gives the example of the tortoise. When he feels danger, he withdraws his limbs within his shell, protects himself. So Krishna gives the example that when our senses attack us, you know, we can withdraw them. So if we get attacked from outside due to bad association, we have to have this protective mechanism where we, you know, withdraw ourselves to Krishna and get protection from him. So you raise a very valid point. So thank you for raising that, Pali.
Thank you for your
again and again, you know, because others will benefit from what you're saying as well.
Thank you for the advice, Prabhuji and Mataji.
Thank you. Nimai?
Okay. So Prabhuji, my question was like, I've been like in Krishna conscious basically like my whole life, and I've been realizing that whenever it comes to food or offering or anything, I would get mad, like, because like I would go like, why do I have to do this? Why do, even though I had the experience that it has to be offered first so that they can be purified by the Lord, so that I don't get any sin by eating it. But like my mind still overtakes me and like saying, why do we have to offer? It just like sits there, no one even touches it. So like I isn't it kind of like frustrating? So not sure how to resolve that.
That's completely you know, valid. I think it's in, like I said, with spiritual practice, there are many things that we have to do that take us out of our complete, you know, how we've been, especially brought up in the West, taught to think. We're very kind of practical. People also very much like we kind of think, oh, I want to do this and this and this and this and this, and it's all about how much that you can get done in the day or how quickly you can do things. So I think that is how a lot of us have been taught to think. And spiritual practice actually takes us into thinking in a completely different way. For example, offering our food to the Lord, but we feel we can't even see the Lord. If just sitting there, you might have those thoughts. I mean, the first thing that might help with that is when you offer your food to the Lord, do you have like a picture of Krishna or something?
Okay, because you know, like, doesn't it like get quite frustrating that like, because like if you're really hungry and some good food has been made, like pizza, pasta, anything like that, like, and you're really hungry, then and then when someone says, can you please put the offering down? It gets like, oh, I really wanted to eat. And then that mind, it conquers me into saying that it just sits there, it becomes cold, and then we have to warm it up again. Even though I have the knowledge that it will remove the sin if Krishna eats it first than us, right? Because that's a real bummer.
But actually, that's not the reason we offer. It's not that he removes the sin. I mean, he does remove it, but the real reason to offer it, he's your best buddy, right? When your best friend comes to your home, you want to really impress him, you know, you really want to please him. So Krishna is that best friend. So when we offer it to him, we want to please him. Krishna, this is a pizza. Please, try it. You know, what do you think about it? You know, have that mood where he is a person, he will enjoy it if we invite him to enjoy it. If we're thinking, okay, you know, just take away some sin, Krishna, it's impersonal. That's the impersonal aspect. But that's not what Krishna is all about. It's not that he's there to take it sin away from us. He's there because he wants us to love him. And how do we love him? We treat him like our best buddy, you know, and say, okay, Krishna, this is nice and warm and freshly made for you. Please enjoy this. Please taste it. Honor it, you know. So that if you have that sort of mood, you'll see it change, or you'll be then thinking, okay, you know what? I can handle this because it's for my best friend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I will try that. Yeah.
All
Okay,
right.
thank you for reading, Mataji.
Great questions. Arjun, you got a question?
This is about the Bhagavad, not the Bhagavad Gita, but about the Mahabharata.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Mahabharata, I was reading that Arjuna and Krishna could not be carrying weapons because they had created it. And it said that they in their previous life they had been Nara and Narayana. But isn't Krishna basically the first incarnation of him?
Sort of lost you a little bit, but yes, Krishna is avatari. He expands as Narayan, or Nara is Arjun and Narayan is Krishna. So Krishna can expand himself as much as he wants. He expands and he becomes Balaram, and then the quadruple expansions, and then Narayan. So it's quite a complex area. But if we simply understand that Krishna is the original form of the Supreme, and there are many expansions, unlimited expansions of his. That's what is explained in the scriptures. Yeah.
And also, why was it like when Krishna died, Arjuna's quiver ran out of arrows?
Well, Krishna never dies, as we never die. We're never going to die because we are, what are we, Arjun?
We're like eternal?
Yeah, spirit souls, right? And Krishna is the supreme spirit soul. So he'll never die. He just returns back to the spiritual world. And when he returns, unfortunately, devotees will lose their power because they're so dependent on the Lord. This is the beauty of the Lord. So that's the reason why Arjun lost his power of strength, and he was conquered by some farm cowherd men. Okay. Thank you, Arjun. Okay, Srinitya, what is? You can have one more question.
I have two more questions
Okay.
that I have to ask. My first question is, are Radha and Krishna always together?
I think that although, you know, sometimes Krishna and Radha might leave different ways to go, like different pastimes, within the heart of themselves, they are always together, because I think they're always thinking on one another as well. Maybe Navi probably wants to provide some of the more technical insight into that, but that's how I envision their relationship.
No, you're right. Actually, they're one. Radha and Krishna are one. They separate in order to enjoy with each other. I mean, this is really technical, but they're always together. They're never separated. Never, ever separated. They're always together. Okay. What was the
Why are they
second question?
always together?
Sorry?
Why are they always together?
Because they really, really love each other.
And what I wanted to ask is, did Ganesh write the Mahabharata and Sage Veda Vyasa had to tell the entire Mahabharata to Ganesha?
Yeah. Sanjay, you want to do it?
Wait, was the question, did Ganesh write the Mahabharata or did Sage Vyasa write the Mahabharata? What was the question? Just
The
want to
question was, did Ganesh write the Mahabharata told by Sage Veda Vyasa?
Yeah, Veda is Ved Vyas. Actually, Ved Vyas dictated the Mahabharata to Ganesh. So both are correct. So Ved Vyas spoke, Ganesh wrote.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Save it for next week, okay? Ria.
How was the world created?
How was the world created? That would take some time. The Lord created it through his potency, through his agents in the material world. He creates the universe as we know it. But at one point, we might be able to explain this in a little bit more detail, but it's very technical. So we've run out of time. Well done. Good questions, especially Srinitya, Pari, and Arjun, Ria. Very, very good. So, Pari, would you like to share the code rather?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'll share it now.
Okay. While you're sharing it, Srinitya, ask your question. We've got a few minutes. Everybody can join, and also Pari, you can share your screen. But in the meantime, Srinitya, you can ask a question, your whatever question you had. Huh?
the question that I had was, did Brahma make this material world, or did Vishnu make this material world?
Good question.
now you probably might have to correct me if I'm wrong. But,
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
I think it's that for this particular Earth, so there are lots of different Brahmas. I think there are like different Brahmas for different material worlds, right? So our Brahma would have created our world, or like he's in charge of, kind of doing the day-to-day creation and maintaining of that world. But of course, it all comes kind of in the authority of Vishnu, and the power vested in the various Brahmas who are creating these worlds come entirely from Vishnu's power. So, yeah.
Why did Brahma decide to include night, where everything gets really dark, and midnight, where everything is pitch dark?
Well, I think if anything, it's an important reminder to us of the many changing aspects of the material world. You can't always have a constant day, but rather day then night and day then night.
Good question. Good answer. I like that answer. On the spot. Okay, have everybody joined? I can see there's only 9 so far. Why don't you all join now, the code quiz, which Pari has very kindly put together. Okay, anybody left? Anybody to join yet? Or can we start?
This is Srinitya's dad. She is I'm just trying to get her onto it. Just give us a few seconds.
No problem.
what's it?
So we only got 11 participants. Where's the rest? We've got at least 20 on the call.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So, see, Lokeshwar is there. Aaron, you're not there. Denu, Harshni, you're not there.
I'm logging
Jania,
on now.
sorry.
I'm logging on.
And Srinatha is in now. Thank you.
Ria, Abhijay. Oh, he's there.
Okay. Is there? Yeah. Siddhartha, yeah, he's there. Kishan? Kishan is not there. Okay, we'll start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So chapter 11, the universal form.
I'm on now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, chapter 11 is which form of yoga? Jnana Yoga, Visvarupa Yoga, Visvarupa Darshana Yoga, Paramhamsa Vijnana Yoga, or Sankhya Yoga? And that's right. So the 5 people that got it correct, it's Visvarupa Darshana Yoga. In Sanskrit, the word rupa means rope, form, light, or universal form.
Tough question. Good.
Yes,
Very right.
that's right. Well done. Lokeshwar is on top. False. The Lord Krishna states that the two-handed form is the original form. True or false? That's right. True is the correct answer.
Good question.
Riyansh and Nimai are climbing up. Why does Arjuna want to see the Lord's universal form? To prove Krishna as the source and set a standard for future frauds, so that he could get material rewards for seeing the Lord's universal form, because he wanted to know whether Krishna was really God or not, or to see what would happen to the Kauravas if Arjuna did not fight them.
Good option.
Bit long answers, but
Good
30
option.
seconds for this one. Well done. Yeah, most of you got it correct, so well done.
Good.
Oh, Srinath.
Wow, she's storming up there.
True or false? It was as if 100 suns rose into the sky at once, the radiance resembling his beauty. Now, this is a bit of a tricky one. Yes, it was actually false, because it's not only 100, it was hundreds or thousands of suns.
Yeah, well done, well done.
Arjun's up first now. The Lord's universal form has unlimited mouths and eyes. He was decorated with celestial ornaments and divine weapons. True or false? Yeah, so true is the correct answer. Well done. True or false? There is only one way we can take the darshan of the Lord. True or false? Well done, guys. It's false. Now, the next 4 questions are going to sort of list the ways.
Good.
One, through the eyes, the deity form. Is that one of the ways you can? Yeah, so is it or is it not one of the ways you can gain darshan of the Lord? Yeah, these are a bit quicker. You have 10 seconds for these ones. Well done for the people who got it right. Lokeshwar on top again. The other way is through our activities like studying or working. Is that one of the ways you can gain darshan of the Lord? Think carefully.
Good.
Yeah, so it's actually false.
Yeah.
It's not through activities like studying or working. It's through bhakti or service. So another way through meditation is chanting the Maha Mantra, a way of gaining darshan of the Lord. Well done.
Wow, nobody got it wrong.
Quick.
Good.
Yeah, so at least we're clear on the Maha Mantra. True or false? So another one is through our intelligence, like winning Kahoot quizzes. Is that a way you can gain darshan of the Lord? Yeah, false. Through our intelligence, you can gain darshan of the Lord by spreading knowledge of the Lord. So if you tell others about Krishna. So the original form of the Lord is even more difficult to see than the universal form. So is the original two-handed form more difficult to see than the universal form, the one which he shows Arjuna? Well done, it's true. It's actually more difficult to see Krishna's original form than his universal form. Srinitya Vakam said again. Well done. Like TV, social media, gossip, mobile games, etc. waste our time. This one's pretty straightforward. Everyone, that's one, right?
Six of you are in trouble.
So yeah, the 9 who got it correct, well done. Srinitya second, well done. What does Lord Krishna say to Arjuna in his universal form? You do not need to fight, I will destroy them. I need you to fight to destroy the Kauravas. The opposition is already destroyed, but become my instrument. Attend the war, but let your brothers fight. One example is what Krishna says to Arjuna.
Very good.
Yes, so the 5 people that, yes, so it was the yellow option. Well done. Double points. Our mission is to be afraid of Krishna, be in awe of the greatness of Krishna, pray to Krishna every day, or create a personal relationship that is filled with sweetness and intimacy. One, 0. Yes, so the 10 that got it correct, well done.
Okay, well, nice quiz, Hari.
No problem.
Srinitya, well done.
Wow, well done, Srinitya. Arjun and
Lokeshwar.
Oh yeah, Lokeshwara. Well done, guys.
Very good, very good. Fantastic.
And the runners are Ghazal and Meera. Well done to you as well. Okay.
Brilliant effort, Pari. Thank you very, very much. Really
no
appreciate
problem, no
it.
problem.
And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you.
This time.
Hare Krishna.
Everyone.
Hare
Next
Krishna.
week is Diwali. I wanted to just ask you, devotees, is this time okay for you? Because in the outside of England, everybody's sort of shifted 1 hour. No, we are.
Babuji, so now it's like around 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Is that okay for you?
Yes, that's okay.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Manha. Thank you, Lokeshwar. Everybody, thank you so much. Thank you, Pari.
Hare Krishna, Babuji.